Finally, Italy has a digital nomad visa. Today we want to make an introduction about this new visa because today, starting from today, you can finally come to Italy working remotely thanks to the digital nomad visa. This is 𝘿𝙤𝙨𝙘𝙡 as always from 𝘔𝙤𝙪𝙩𝙏𝙀𝙡 from Italy, and do not lose any more time. Let's start. We can say that finally Italy has a digital nomad visa. I say finally, why? Why? Because Italy started to talk about the digital nomad visa, and the parliament drafts the so-called digital nomad visa since more than 1 year ago. And actually the law was approved more than 1 year ago. So it was supposed to have a digital nomad visa before today. But Italian bureaucracy sometimes can take so long, and we were waiting for some decrees from a few ministers, and so now we have finally the operative decrees that will allow the digital nomad visa to be officially in place in Italy. So today you can start to apply for the digital nomad visa. Why this visa is so important? And briefly speaking, we want to make an introduction to explain you what is the digital nomad visa, when you can apply for the digital nomad visa, and if you are eligible to get a digital nomad visa. So what is the digital nomad visa? The digital nomad visa is a visa that can be released for 1 year to come in Italy and stay here so long term for more than 90 days, living here and so having a resident permit in Italy, working remotely here. The new regulation says that we can process and you can have a digital nomad visa when you're a high-skilled worker that can come in Italy to use your laptop, for example, and working remotely. This definition is pretty generic, and so we need to dig more and to better understand what is a high-skilled worker. So the law says that you're a high-skilled worker when you can have two alternative situations. So the first one, you need to have higher educational qualification, for example, a university diploma or something like that, for a 3 years qualification, so a 3-year educational qualification for doing that specific job, for doing that specific profession you are doing. So if you are freelance, if you are collaborator for a company, or you are employing a company, you need to show that you have a minimum of 3 years higher educational qualification for doing that specific work. Or in case your job, your profession does not require to have an educational qualification, for example, you're a graphic designer or you're working on tech, but you don't necessarily have to have a university qualification of minimum 3 years for that job, then we can replace the 3 years qualification with a 5 years experience on that specific field. Of course, you need to prove that you have this 5 years experience on that field. So in these scenarios, depending on your situation, we can use different documents to prove that you have a minimum of 5 years qualification, professional qualification in that job. So to recap, 3 years higher qualification, educational qualification for that specific job, for example, university diploma, or alternatively, 5 years experience on that specific field that you need, of course, to demonstrate, for example, with payrolls, with a letter from the company, depending also your situation, because you can be a self-employed, so a freelance, you can just be a collaborator to a company, or you can be employed into a company. So you can have a visa, of course, if you are not an European citizen, that's of course obvious, and you're working also or for an Italian company, but also for a non-European company. Typical example, if you are working as a freelance or you are collaborating in the tech industry with Silicon Valley company, and you can work remotely, so you can take your laptop and come to Italy and work remotely for your US tech company. In this case, assuming that you can all demonstrate your situation, so your experience, your higher education, then you can apply for the visa. Of course, you will need accommodation in Italy because you need to provide, as this is for all the application for all the visas, you need to provide to have a stable accommodation in Italy. And of course, you need also an healthcare insurance to be covered for all the medical expenses you might have in the future during your stay your long stay in Italy. You need a coverage of a minimum 60,000 euros for all the medical condition. So it's really, really important when you want to file, if you're thinking to come in Italy for minimum 1 year, to work remotely here, to make a really, really deep check if you can qualify for this kind of visa. Of course, we are here for this. We can assist you also for the visa, but also for checking a pre-qualification for the visa. So you can contact us through the website. You can go to the website on the contact section. There's a form that you can fill to contact us, and we are happy to eventually to also arrange a call, a consultation call with you to better analyze your case, analyze your situation, and checking how we can prepare a tailored applications, of course a well-prepared application for being successful with the Italian consulate, especially now where of course this visa is new. So of course also the Italian consulates are starting now to process this type of visa for the first time. So it's very important to be legally assisted, also in the preparation, the documentation, the proper documentation. Thank you so much as always for your time, and see you on the next videos.